Good morning. My name is Dr. Lourin from Rowan University, and I would like to welcome you all to our Marian Anderson Guild virtual African American and spiritual workshop. This is a workshop about singing African American spirituals, and I hope to provide you with all kinds of resources, information about style and forms, and background about spirituals and how you can go about performing them better. For today's presentation, I'd like you to know that I will begin with spirituals and talking about the background of them, the type of forms there are, what kinds of styles are appropriate, and then some of the resources that are available to help you perform them better. I'd also like to, at the very end, pull together 4 students that are going to sing for you some spirituals in a virtual, very brief master class. And we'll talk about their style, and I'll give them some tips about singing. And then at the very end, I will give you some conclusions with a show and tell about resources, and remind you about the scholarship competition that's coming up in the month of April. So lots of good things to go forward with today. And I hope that you will find this informative and useful. This is actually a chart of the evolution of African American music in several different categories. First of all, in the far left-hand side, the sacred traditions, the secular in the middle, and on the far right side, the so-called secular traditions instrumental. We can take our look on the left-hand side, on the folk spiritual side, where most of the vocal traditions are located. We see spirituals and arranged spirituals for the stage, and also gospel music and ensemble music, gospel quartets, traditional gospel music, all the way down through today, gospel hip hop music, including, well, in short, almost every style of music in America: country music, rock and roll, blues, jazz, jazz fusion, jazz hip hop. All of these forms are greatly influenced by African American tradition, and there is hardly any music in America that is not shaped by African American traditions. And so as we look forward to this presentation, I want you to keep in mind how widespread African American influence is in music, and how particularly strong the spirituals tradition is, and how it has gone on for over 150 years, at least for the stage, and beyond that in traditional singing. Before we begin with a discussion about all of these things, I'd like you to hear just a tiny bit of Marian Anderson, our patron saint, who is here singing Deep River, arranged by H.T. Burley. I want you to note her beautiful contralto voice, and I want you also to note how she handles the language. And I think we have probably time to hear just the A section of this spiritual. on into the verse. Miss Anderson's voice is so lovely and so resonant. And it was Miss Anderson, along with Paul Robeson and Roland Hayes and a few others, that set this tradition of singing spirituals on the concert stage into motion and made it so appreciated all over the world with her powerful expression and her powerful renditions of this great music. We're going to go on from Miss Anderson singing. We're going to go on to the next slide, where it tells you that spirituals have been in effect for quite a long time, and they are unique in American music. As a matter of fact, they are unique in the entire African diaspora under slavery. Here in this country, there are more than 6,000 examples that remain. It's the largest body of American folk literature to reach the 21st century. And spirituals open to us a window of witness and testimony, an understanding of the difficulties of surviving the slavery in America experience. And they illuminate to us the singing soul at the heart of African Americans. They reveal ultimately the optimism that transcended the slave experience and brought us and our ancestors to this point where we are today. A bit about the background, I would say, and a little bit about the foreground. I guess spirituals actually are a remnant of the encounter between Africans and European culture in the American South under slavery. And we all know through history that Africans arrived in America largely through the transatlantic slave trade. Of course, the background about that is it is the largest forced migration in world history. It is historically considered to be from 12 million to 100 million Africans. Actually, W.E.B. Du Bois is the person who believes it was so many, with 100 million people involved. It was he who said that number, and I think he wanted to impress upon the American public and the world how devastating the African slave trade was to Africa and also to Africans in America. There are in history at least over 65,000 documented voyages taking Africans from the mother Africa all the way to the Americas. And some background information about that, I guess 17th century slave ship took approximately 30 to 90 days to reach these shores. And by the middle of the 19th century, with technical advances in sail shape and routes taken, they could make that same journey in 12 to 16 days. And the slave ships themselves carried from over 450 slaves to at least 800 slaves. And unfortunately, the mortality rate was also quite high. Between 30 to 50% of those in the ships did not survive. Here we have a look at the countries that were involved: Denmark, Norway, England, France, the Netherlands, Portugal, and Spain. Probably Portuguese were among the earliest, and then the Spanish quickly followed. There was a very enormous trade with Brazil, but they didn't participate so much in the triangular slave trade. It was direct trade between Brazil and Africa. We can see by this map that most of the Africans that were involved in the triangular trade came from West Africa and West Central Africa. And it was in these regions that many of the tribesmen participated in that trade. That is, from Europe, ships came to loaded with goods for trading, merchandise. They came to Africa and they traded that merchandise for African souls. And then they took those souls to the Americas, not only to the Caribbean, but also to the southern part of America, of North America. And then they traded those souls for tobacco, raw goods like cotton, sugar, molasses, indigo, and they took those things back to Europe, and the entire trade started all again. The enslaved people that reached the American shores were about 500,000, a 500,000 souls coming from all types of tribes, men, women, and children: Ashanti, Bantu, Dahomey, Ezek, Fanti, Hausa, Igbo, Kru, and Mandingo. And most of them actually arrived in the 18th century, where the rate of trade was at its highest at 50% of the people that came into slavery came during that time. It started as a trickle in the 15th century, and then by its end in the 19th century, it fell to 28%. African-American elements in songs and narratives speak to us about the Middle Passage, about auction block, about couples, that is being led from one place to the other in chains. They speak to us about plantation life, religious conversion, their resistance to slavery, their running away, the lives of freedmen and women, and the effects of emancipation, survival, and ultimately the transcendence of the slave experience. Here are a few other facts about American slavery that might be useful. First of all, slave owners were a minority that controlled the politics and the economy of the entire country. For example, to own a slave in this country was considered to be a sign of status. And by 1860, there was about 400,000 slave owners. This was considered still to be quite a minority of the people in this country. And this minority of slave owners actually controlled the economy and actually sent this country into a civil war over the issue of American slavery. Now, of these slave owners, the most slave owners held about 20 slaves, although there were some very large slave plantations that had thousands of slaves. But most of them were very small. And in 1865, at the time of the emancipation, about 4 million African Americans were set free. I've prepared a small video for you about the quality of the melodies of these spirituals. Many of them were in this, what we call a pentatonic scale, and then later were influenced by the so-called European do-re-mi scale. So here is just a tiny video that explains just a bit of that. The pentatonic scale is easily shown here on the piano as the black notes on the keyboard. Actually, that's the scale right there. And so many of the early spirituals fall into that category. For example, etc. Another one that's like that is Sometimes I Feel Like a Motherless Child. That is the more African pentatonic tune, but we know that tune shows an influence of the Western European scale with a leading tone at the end. That happens also in another African American spiritual, for example, Wade in the Water. It also shows that influence of the Western European scale. With a leading tone at the end, Wade in the Water. Such an interesting look at those tunes. It's very difficult to play piano and hold my cell phone to make that work, but you get the idea that the pentatonic scale was one of the most influential scales of the early spirituals, and then they were more influenced by the leading tone scale that most Americans were familiar with. So now I'd like to talk with you about the song forms. Originally, these were devotional songs, and these were not songs written for the concert stage, but were written for religious services and for meetings to kind of sing and kind of heal themselves of their experience. Of these spiritual songs, there are many forms. First, I would say the traditional call and response forms. Another would be the sorrow songs or the slow lament that have a refrain that has 3 lines that are exactly the same, and then the 4th line, the +1 line, completes that form. There are jubilees. These are uplifting, celebratory spirituals with great energy and tempo. There are longer, complex narrative structures on biblical texts. And then there are those famous spirituals that are complex, coded, hidden meaning forms. And I think we're going to take a little look at all of these today. I think the first group would be the call and response forms. And there are many great spirituals in that tradition. I think, Lord, I don't feel no ways tired. Walk together, children. Walk together, children is the call. Don't you get weary. There, walk together, children. Don't you get weary. Don't walk together, children. Don't you get weary. There's a great camp meeting in the promised land. Yes, that's a great call and response style. But here we have Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, sung by Robert McFerrin. This is arranged by Hall Johnson, and this is a call and response. So Swing Low, Sweet Chariot is the call. Coming for to carry me home is the response, usually by a group. Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, coming for to carry me home. I looked over Jordan, and what did I see is the call. Coming for to carry me home is the response. A band of angels coming after me is the call. Coming for to carry me home. So that line, coming for to carry me home, is the response that you hear all the time. Here it's arranged in a solo spiritual with Robert McFerrin's marvelous voice.
Oh, swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Oh, swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Oh, swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Oh, swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home.
The call.
I looked over Jordan, and what did I
and the response.
see? Coming for to carry me home.
The call.
A band of angels coming
and the
after
response.
me, coming for to carry
And then
me home.
the refrain again. Oh yeah.
Swing low,
It's impolite to interrupt Mr. McFerrin in his beautiful voice and this great spiritual. But if we're going to cover all of these, I guess we should just play just a tidbit of these songs. And so the next one I'd like to talk about is the so-called sorrow songs. There's a large body of these songs. These are the intensely slow and melancholic songs describing the agonies of slave life and the struggles that many African Americans endured under bondage. They speak about many things and they identify largely with the sufferings of the Christ. And so in these songs, we find that in singing, they ease the burden and they provide healing for the singer and for the listener. So they also allowed for a sense of change, a sense of transcendence, a belief in the ultimate justice, and it fortified their sense of personal worth. This spiritual, sometimes I feel like a motherless child, is very much like that. And I mentioned that it has a 3+1 refrain structure. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. And it completes the idea a long ways from home. And so we'll hear a little bit of this arrangement by Moses Hogan and Alfred Walker, the bass, who is singing it. Here we begin in the second verse.
Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone. A long ways. A long ways.
So haunting and so powerful to hear that beautiful spiritual song. And so the sorrow songs have a special place in the entire body of literature and spirituals. Those are among the famous ones that W.E.B. Du Bois really loved and wrote about in his famous book, The Souls of Black People. It's just a fabulous expression. Next, I would like to talk to you about another sorrow song. This one is with Florence Quivar, and Florence is singing the tune "Round About the Mountain." And Florence, if you're not familiar with her colorful and deeply emotional voice, she's quite an amazing mezzo and has done quite a bit for the establishment and the continued singing of African American spirituals in her great tradition. So here she sings the arrangement by Roland Hayes, "Round About the Mountain." And I would want you to listen to the color of her voice and the quality of her expression. Also listen to her diction as she sings this tune, made famous by Roland Hayes. And the refrain. I have to stop her there. She sounds so great as she sings this wonderful spiritual. Roland Hayes was not only a singer of spirituals in the early days, he also was an arranger of spirituals. And so he did very much, he supported spirituals very much by writing them and arranging them and preparing them for the concert stage, and then singing them himself in his concerts around the world. And so we are deeply indebted to his tradition that he established and helped others understand the African-American experience. Next, I'd like to talk to you about jubilees. And this is a great category of spirituals because it's very uplifting. It has lots of energy. And usually these jubilees are fast and highly emotional and very syncopated, like Rock of My Soul in the Bosom of Abraham, or In That Great Getting Up Morning, or Walk Together Children. Another one I like is Down by the Riverside. Those are all wonderful spirituals. And here we have Angela Brown, a great soprano, singing Moses Hogan's arrangement of Walk Together Children. And I think we're going to start Angela at the end of this because we, of course, want to give her a chance to sing her high C in this piece. So she's fantastic. Here, we'll make a jump to the end.
Weary, walk together, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, children, don't you get weary. There's a great camp meeting in the promised land. Gonna shout and never tire. Oh, shout and never tire. Shout and never tire. There's a great camp meeting in the promised land. Oh, walk together, children, don't you get weary. Sing together, children, don't you get weary. Shout together, children, don't you get weary. There's a great camp meeting, great camp meeting, great camp meeting in the
Such a great uplifting sound and so much energy in this piece. It's a wonderful spiritual in that great collection by Moses Hogan. And Angela brings all of that energy and beauty to her singing, and that expression cannot be beat. The next collection of spirituals that I would want you to know something about is the long, complex narrative structures that are based on Bible stories. In this case, we have Kevin Maynor singing Joshua Fit, the Battle of Jericho. And it is one of these great storytelling spirituals taken straight from the Bible. In this case, we're going to let Kevin sing the entire piece because it's about 1 minute long. But Kevin sings it with such color and history telling, and he really understands what's going on in this spiritual. This is Joshua Fit, the Battle of Jericho, and listen to his diction on this.
Joshua fit the battle of Jericho, Jericho, Jericho. Joshua fit the battle of Jericho, and the walls came tumbling down. You may talk about your king of Gideon, you may talk about your man of Saul, there's none like good old Joshua in the battle of Jericho. Up to the walls of Jericho he marched with spear in hand. From blood and ram home Joshua cried, 'cause the battle is in my hand. When the lamb ram sheep horns began to blow and the trumpets began to sound, Joshua commanded the children to shout, and the walls came tumbling down. Joshua fit the battle of Jericho, Jericho, Jericho. Joshua fit the battle of Jericho, and the walls came tumbling down.
Powerful, uplifting, spiritual that tells the whole story of Joshua fighting the Battle of Jericho. It's a great example of spirituals and their ability to take these stories and set them for their listeners. Many of these enslaved people were not readers of the Bible. They could not read the Bible. They were not permitted to read the Bible. But these stories found their way into their understanding, and in this way, Lawrence Brown has set this spiritual so beautifully. This one is, of course, contained in that great collection of spirituals, the American Negro spiritual by the Johnson brothers, and I'll show you the anthology of that a little later. Next, I'd like to talk to you about the famous spirituals that we call the hidden meaning spirituals or the coded spirituals. Many of them, of course, are spirituals about the idea of running away or escaping. It's a form of resistance to slavery. Many of them are indeed associated with the Underground Railroad. They use terminology many times from railroads as a secret language for assisting slaves to get to freedom. Spiritual like, if I got my ticket, can I ride? Of course, those that speaks very much to the train experience. Others like wade in the water is a coded spiritual, or swing low sweet chariot, or go down Moses, or let us break bread together. These are all ideas of coded spirituals. Steal away, I think, is also one of the old ones as well. But this one, of these examples, I'd like you to hear William Warfield, another pioneer in singing spirituals on the concert stage. He sings "The Gospel Train Am A-Comin'." This one is arranged by H.T. Burley, and William Warfield's baritone just comes booming out with all kinds of expression. He made this recording later in his life, and we're so thankful that he did, because it provides a wonderful example for us.
Gospel train am a-comin', I hear it just at hand. I hear the car wheels rambling and rolling through the land. And get on board, little children, get on board. Little children, get on board. Little children, there's room for many or more. I hear the train a-comin', she's coming around the curve. She's loosening all her steam and brakes and straining every nerve. Then get on board, little children, get on board. Little children, get on board. Little children, there's room for many or more.
Yes, and he goes on to say the fare is cheap and all can go. The rich and poor are there. No second class aboard this train. No difference in the fare. And you hear that the train whistle in the piano part. It's just a wonderfully colorful spiritual that speaks about getting on board the Underground Railroad train and running away and finding your way to freedom. The idea of no second class aboard this train. Everybody is of the same class. Fantastically conceived, spiritual, and wonderfully arranged by Burley. Now, all of those spirituals that I played for you before are all wonderfully accompanied spirituals, but that was not the original style. The original style was the a cappella style, where they sang unaccompanied spirituals, perhaps patting on their body or patting their hands together, patting juba, as they sometimes said. But generally, these are a cappella styles of singing in the earliest forms of spiritual. And some people believe that this is the most highly evolved style of singing, where it's very individual. The person could bring all kinds of emotion and technique to singing these spirituals. And so I'm going to play just a tiny bit of each one. First, we're going to go with Kevin singing Scandalize My Name. Here he starts with a pitch, and then he goes on out of.
Well, I met my brother the other day and gave him my right hand. And just as soon as ever my back was turned, he went and scandalized my name. Now you call that a brother? No, no. You call that a brother? No, child, no. You call that a brother? No, no. Scandalizing my name.
Yeah, so in order to be able to be able to sing these spirituals unaccompanied, you have to have a real sense of pitch and a real sense of style and form, and you have to bring all of those things together, just like Kevin did. Here, in this case, Florence Quivar sings, I love the Lord. I love the name.
And it calms my fears as I journey to and fro. I'll take the name wherever
you can hear her adding all kinds of ornaments to these lines, and even some blue notes, and she ornaments with that pentatonic scale, and it's just a wonderful example of what you can do to the vocal line if you have ideas about this expression. And Miss Quivar is spectacular in her unaccompanied spiritual singing. Here is an example of Jesse Norman singing the unaccompanied spiritual style.
There's a man going round taking names. There's a man going round taking names. He has taken my father's name, and he's left my heart in pain. There's a man going round taking names.
Oh, she sings so beautifully, and the world certainly lost a giant when Miss Norman passed. Rest your soul. You have done beautiful work, and your singing was spectacular. She's a wonderful example of a cappella singing style in spirituals. All three of them bring so much to the style of singing spirituals. Now let's see if I can get past this page without starting all of these. There we go. The next page I'd like to talk about is the style, the so-called dialect. And this is really where some people have difficulty with spirituals because they're not used to the dialect. They don't study dialect. Dialect is more or less remote to their experience. And so when people come to spirituals, and if they are indeed uncomfortable with dialect and spiritual, then probably the axiom is less is more. You want to think about singing spirituals that have less dialectical texts. And there are many of them. You don't have to get deep into the weeds about dialect. Dialects, of course, a dialect in spirituals is a written approximation of these African-American speech patterns. And the key thing would be to avoid exaggerations in it. We do note that, however, 70% of the enslaved African ancestors from the Mandi or West African and Bantu or Central African ethnic groups lived in the American South for over 300 years. And 90% of these African Americans remained there. And this accounts for the so-called Southernness of American speech patterns in the South. The so-called Southern dialect is actually an African-American, highly influenced style of speaking English. And there are some specific things in the dialect that you might note. First of all, the TH sound was alien and difficult for Africans to say when they came to this country. I think of it almost like Arnold Schwarzenegger, who as an Austrian came to this country, and they don't have that TH sound like Americans do either. And so the sound TH, instead of van, they say Dan. And Arnold Schwarzenegger would say the Terminator, instead of the Terminator. And so African Americans have that same kind of dialectical problem. They instead of they, and instead of the, it became D, or instead of the, it became duh. Instead of that, it became dat. And instead of this, it became dis. With became wit. And instead of father, it became fodder. And now we also believe that that is also highly influenced by Scottish speaking dialect patterns. The TH sound at the end of the word, they were trying to approximate that friction sound that they hear, these early Africans in America. So the TH sound, like in the word mouth, became mouth. They tried to make that friction sound. So, or truth became truth, or breath became breath, or path became path. And I have relatives from Georgia, and I can still hear some of these same patterns, even 150 years much later, after slavery has ended. We still have what we would call vestiges of these speaking patterns in modern speech patterns. So I couldn't catch my breath. I've heard that before. Or I got lost on the path. Oh, my mouth is dry, instead of mouth. These kinds of patterns consistently appear. Also, the R was difficult in dialect style. So the R in the word, especially at the end of the word, was very hard to say. So an American would say summer with an American R, but the Africans in America would say summer. Summer. They would stretch that vowel. Instead of summer, they would stretch it summer. And instead of torn, they would say toe. I toe it up. Instead of your, they would say yo. And I don't mean yo like Yo Adrian in Philadelphia. I would say yo, yo, yo. Okay. And an idea like this, I guess if you look at wade into water, you would hear all of that dialect. See that man all dressed in white? He's gonna trouble the water. Note the spelling of that. Oh, the leader look just like the Israelite. he's gonna trouble the water. These dialect patterns can be difficult for some people. And so I would say if you're nervous about speaking dialect, you might want to think about singing any number of spirituals that don't have these highly developed examples of dialect within them. Also, something about tone painting and text painting. This is very important, particularly text painting when you're singing spirituals. I also tell my students to sing with a rounder, almost darker sound. Instead of an E-based tone, I have them think of ooh or oh with their lips forward, and not to sing with their teeth uncovered so much, but to sing with their lips forward. This will help round the tone and help give it the color that is best for expressing these spirituals. Like in sometimes I feel like a motherless child, rather than sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. That helps round the tone and helps make it more colorful. And then style. Well, the question of improvisation, what do you do about improvisation? Okay, of course, this is a big problem. Sometimes people overly improvise spirituals, and probably that's okay for any of the a cappella forms that you find these spirituals in. You're expected to do this. You're expected to add your own interpretation in unaccompanied spirituals. It would be unusual if you didn't. However, when you are going for some of the highly arranged versions of the spirituals, particularly like Hall Johnson's spiritual, he was very, very particular about people singing his music and not adding other things in the music that would throw off his form or style. So interpolating higher notes at the end, we've heard people do that. That seems to be probably the most that Hall Johnson would allow to happen, but improvising too much over the style that is written down is considered to be not good for these spirituals. Treat them with care. If it's a simple arrangement of the spiritual, you can perhaps add some improvisational character to it. But if it's one of these highly evolved expressions with very complex accompaniment, I would say this is not the time for you to improvise a great deal. Try to do that in the unaccompanied spirituals much more. Next, I'm going to talk to you briefly about resources. And originally, I guess, individually improvised group forms were there are some controversies about it, I guess. The art song, the folk song treatment, Willis Patterson speaks about this, making sure that we don't improvise too much in these spirituals. Interpolating higher notes is okay, but again, improvising too much in the gospel style might be problematic. I wanted you to just look at what Randy Jones made for the web, A Century of Negro Spirituals for Solo Voice. She shows the great generations of composers that have come forward out of slavery and into the concert hall tradition and brought the spiritual to that hall. There are some most of these are African Americans. There are some white composers that are on that list, like Marquez, but there are many others that many African Americans in every generation. And you can see that from the earliest, H.T. Burley, Roland Hayes, Nathaniel Dett, these and the Johnson brothers, this brings so much musical tradition to the next generation. William Grant Still, Edward Boatner, John Wesley Work, Margaret Bonds. And by the way, we do notice quite a few women composers here in this second generation. Undine Smith Moore, we see Margaret Bonds, we see Betty Jackson King, Lena McLin, Eva Jesse. There are more composers coming forward into the now generation or the third generation. We see a mix of all kinds of composers. Wendell Whalen, we see Jacqueline Hairston, Uzi Brown, we see Evelyn Simpson Currington. There's so many spectacular composers that have arranged African-American spirituals for the concert stage that you can find some of the earliest examples right up to the newest examples that I'm going to try to highlight for you here. Here is an example of a Margaret Bond spiritual, and she's one of the great women composers of the African-American spiritual. Here she sings just a tiny bit of He's Got the Whole World in His Hand. Let's see if I can get that to play. Here, I'm going to jump her to the end. She's accompanied. Yeah, she's spectacular on that. And I would say that Miss Bonds did not write that high D on the end of that piece, but she did interpolate that note. And it seemed to fit right in. It's right in Kathleen Battle's oeuvre, so to speak. She can really do it. And who doesn't want to hear Kathleen Battle sing a high note? I certainly want to hear her sing a high note. So it's a wonderful example of Margaret Bond's work, and then Kathleen Battle bringing something extra to the work as well. Let's see if I can get to the next slide here. This one is Leontine Price singing My Soul's Been Anchored in the Lord. This is another African-American female composer. This is Florence Price. And Miss Price from Laurel, Mississippi, made it all the way to the White House, where she's singing this for the Carter administration in the White House. Let me see if I can get her to sing just a bit of the second verse of this. So powerful, so enormously popular, and one of the pioneers of African-American excellence in this country. Miss Price, I think, was the second woman to sing at the Metropolitan Opera, the second African-American woman to sing at the Metropolitan Opera. The first woman was Miss Marian Anderson, and then the first man was Robert McFerrin. The first African-American man was Robert McFerrin. So it was what fabulous excellence they brought to the stage, and they made it possible for other African-American singers to follow after them. Let's go on to the next slide. And in this case, I would like you to hear just a tiny bit of Louise Toppin, who's teaching now at the University of Michigan, and it has done so much for the recording of African-American spirituals and doing enormous work by bringing African-American female composers to the attention of everyone in the world. And she sings here, Betty Jackson King's Rise Up in the Chariot. And she sings with all kinds of spirit and energy. This is a great jubilee. So here is, I'm going to see if I can jump her to the second verse.
Soon in the morning, chatting with the angels. Soon in the morning, and I hope I'll join the band. Oh, Lord, have mercy on me. Oh, Lord, have mercy on me. Oh, Lord, have mercy on me. I know I'll join the band. Lord, have mercy. Lord, have mercy. Lord, have mercy. I know I'll join the band.
And you are right, Miss Toppin has a high F ready to go anytime you're ready to sing a spiritual. She sounds so fantastic, brings all of that energy and joy to that wonderful spiritual by Betty Jackson King. Okay, now the next one, I think I wanted to also have another piece by Miss Toppin, Professor Toppin, and I think you should know she sings some of the latest arranged spirituals. This one by Joseph Joubert on the Hall Johnson album. It's called He'll Bring It to Pass, and it's got all of this wonderful jazzy and gospel-y styles of singing. And this is part of the new directions, I guess, of African-American spirituals. I'll just play just a pinch of this as well. I'll see if I can jump her into the third verse. Right. Such beautiful singing. Thank you so much, Professor Toppin. She interpolates that high note on the end. She's such a great artist. And here she's accompanied by Joseph Joubert, who arranged that spiritual for that album. It's a great example of the new densely harmonic and almost jazzy, quasi gospel-y style that people bring to the African-American spiritual. So I'm going to go on to the with just a few other examples of that, and then I think we need to go on to our masterclass. But first, I would just say here is an example of Lawrence Brownlee singing Damian Sneed's Every Time I Feel the Spirit, which has a wonderful modern feel to it. I can give you about 30 seconds of it.
Upon this track, it runs to heaven and then right back. Every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. Every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart.
Please forgive me. I hate to stop him there because he sounds so marvelous, and the energy and the style and the powerful playing of Damian Sneed is just magnificent. But this is a part of the new direction, I guess, of spirituals as modern composers find their way into these old melodies and bring them into the 21st century. They really have developed a great deal of style and energy. Let's see if I can get to the next slide. Here's another one. This is, of course, John Carter's arrangement of the cantata, which contains several spirituals embedded in it. Let's see. I'm going to see if I can get to Peter Ring Them Bells closer to the end of this movement here. Yes, you can hear how modern, how it takes these old tunes and how it applies a new sense of harmony, a new sense of rhythm, a new sense of purpose at the end of the 20th century. This is a great recording, and you can find many of these recordings online. And I hope that when you take this PowerPoint away from this presentation, that you'll be able to reference them and hear these performances in complete freedom. They have great, really great ability, and they're very moving. Here's Lawrence Brownlee for just a tiny bit. A man's going around taking names, which is something that was just recently recorded and released. Let's see if I can get a tiny bit of that. Yeah, you can see how modern technique is brought into the composition, and Jason Moran at the keyboard playing his own arrangement of this spiritual and combining with Lawrence Brownlee makes it a powerful expression, and one that I hope that you will go back and hear the entire performance, because it is quite moving. And I would say that Lawrence Brownlee's ability to express these songs is so wonderfully inspiring to all of us. I guess the last thing to say about this is that narratives with spirituals actually help to combine our story and complete more of our story. And if you're going to be a spiritual singer, then maybe you would want to dive into narratives more and find out more about spirituals through them, about the experience of African-American slaves. For example, if you were singing "Sometimes I Feel Like a Motherless Child," you might even want to read about Ben Simpson's account of his enslavement and how he lost his own mother in his narrative in their forced migration from Georgia to Texas, which they had to walk all the way over 1,000 miles chained together. And so when you read that narrative, you start to understand what that text is all about. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child, a long ways from home. Here it is. I just put a fragment of it here. There's also a narrative that speaks to us about the eyewitness account of Ida B. Hutchinson. This is her narrative that talks to you about her experience, which connects very much with the spiritual "Nobody Knows the Trouble I Seen." She witnesses the deaths of 60 babies on a plantation, and it is such a horrendous example of the horrible nature of American slavery that Ida's witness in her narrative gives you a real sense about, hallelujah, this nobody else will see what I have seen. And so all of a sudden the power of "Nobody Knows the Trouble I've Seen" comes forward in her narrative. So I would recommend that to you as well. Another spiritual, like "I'm on my way to Canaan land," is also expressed in narratives. Here Walter expresses his need to run away and to get away from the life that slavery represents to him. And so even though he can't take his family, he must go himself. And so "I'm on my way to Canaan land." And so his narrative speaks about, I don't know what's waiting for me on the other side here, but I know one thing for sure: I will not die a slave. So he ran. And so it's a very powerful narrative as well. Well, one or two more here. Hannah Austin and Patsy Mitchner talked about the abstraction and the ambiguity and the fear that comes from emancipation. All of a sudden being freed with nothing to live on, no place to go. They speak about the sadness and the joy of no more auction block for me. And so those confusing ideas come through in their narratives. And I would recommend both of those narratives for you as well. Narratives and spirituals together actually combine to tell us more of the story of our nation. And our country has been afraid or unwilling to really tell this in truth and understanding. And it's important for us to look at these things together as we perform this literature. They light the way for us, as they lit the way for our ancestors, our souls and our ancestral souls who were able to transcend the horrors of the uniquely American slave experience. They are powerful eyewitnesses to the most significant chapters in American history that resonate with pain and beauty and truth. And they teach us more effectively than other means the unimaginable, I guess, They tell us about the unlimited possibilities of human transformation and the manner in which that transformation process is aided and supported by the power of truth, song, and symbol. Spirituals and narratives breach the historic void of the distantly remote matter of factness of American slavery. People think that's just, history, but it's more than history. These were lives lived, and they leave lots of artifacts for us to understand what happened to them. They speak their truth without flinching, and they decimate the idea of slavery with honesty, ingenuity, and with simplicity. This is all very powerful. Narratives and spirituals are trying to provide a path for us, a way for this country to go forward, and that's very, very important. So I, of course, suggest that you think about spirituals and narratives because they are very important to our future, they're important to our past, and to the direction we want to go as a country. So all people who are welcome to sing spirituals, and if they look at spirituals and narratives together, they get a real sense of that history that is very important to understand when singing these songs. Oops, I went the wrong way, this way. And now time for a little show and tell, I guess. Here are some resources that I list in the credits at the end of this PowerPoint. But I would say if you were going to have a book, Howard Swanson or Howard Thurman's Deep River and the Negro Spiritual speaks of life and death. It's a wonderful reading on the nature of spirituals and how they speak in the philosophy of life. These spirituals, and Howard Thurman speaks very powerfully about that. I would recommend that book to all of you. If you don't have Eileen Dunter's book of In Their Own Words, Slave Life and the Power of Spirituals, you should have this. This is a wonderful book that lists all kinds of narratives and spirituals and resources and cross-references them with Bible verses. And it is probably one of the best books that has come out recently about spirituals and the resources to singing them with understanding and truth. So I recommend Eileen's book to all of you. I would also recommend Arthur C. Jones' Wade in the Water, which speaks to Professor Jones is a psychologist, and he speaks about the psychology of singing spirituals and what it does for the soul and its ability to heal us. So I recommend, of course, Dr. Jones's book, Arthur Jones, who is a great musician and is alive and living in Denver, and has done so much for the understanding of where spirituals are and what they do for us. If you're going to get a history book about spirituals, then I recommend this recently released The Great Stain, Witnessing American Slavery. Now, it's written by a British writer, but he really has the feeling of what is going on in American slavery. So I would definitely recommend this to you, The Great Stain. And if you're going to own an anthology of slave narratives, then I would say this one by Julius Lester is a powerful one. It is To Be a Slave, and here is my 30th anniversary edition of it. It's a great read, a collection of slave narratives. There are so many narratives, but he has gone through so many of them, and he has selected several of them that pull together the story of African-American slavery, and it's very powerful. You combine that with spirituals and you have a real understanding of what has gone on. Here is an anthology put together by Henry Louis Gates and William Andrews. They have put together an anthology of African-American slave narratives. And this is a very wonderful book as well. It's got many important slave narratives, like the one by Nat Turner, the slave narrative by Frederick Douglass, the William Wells Brown's narrative, the slave narrative of Henry Bibb, also the Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl by Harriet Jacobs, also Running 1,000 Miles for Freedom by William and Ellen Craft. These are essential slave narratives that give you a real sense about what it was to run in fear for your life during the period of American slavery. So these are important sources for you. And if you're going to have some books with music in them, then why not start with this one? This is the American Negro Spirituals. It's volumes 1 and 2 by James Weldon Johnson and J. Rosamond Johnson, the book of American Negro Spirituals. It's about a century old now, and it is fantastic. Okay. Next is the Hall Johnson collection, which was put together by Carl Fisher, but my colleague and friend, Dr. Eugene Simpson. And so this is a great collection of over 50 classics of Hall Johnson's incomparable style. And it comes with recordings so that you can hear these examples, and they're in high and low keys. I definitely recommend that volume to you. This is the Story of Negro Spirituals. These are early spirituals arranged by Edward Boatner. I would recommend that volume to you as well. Then you, of course, know the volumes by Moses Hogan, the Deep River collection in high and low keys. Those are wonderful for you if you are looking for spirituals to perform. Those anthologies are necessary. I have also the Burley books. These come in high and low keys as well. This is the Spirituals of Harry T. Burley, which I think you can't live without these. You need these because they are history and they are the backbone of the literature. So you got to have those. If you have Roland Hayes's book, My Favorite Spirituals, 30 Songs for Voice and Piano, arranged and interpreted by Roland Hayes. He's got a wonderful chapter that talks about spirituals and the different styles of them. So I would recommend that as well to you. And the last one, I guess, and there are others, there are many others, but because this is already an hour long, I want to make sure that you understand what we are dealing with. The Anthology of Art Songs by Black Composers. This is compiled by Willis C. Patterson while he was a professor at the University of Michigan. It's a wonderful book of spirituals and art songs by African-American composers. I would definitely say those are the ones for you. If you start with that material, you've got a lot going for you. Now, I will end this presentation by saying thank you and pass through the information about the masterclass, which is to come. The brief masterclass, I have 4 students that are going to sing a little bit for you. Sometimes I Feel Like a Motherless Child by Michael Crasting. Were You There? Sung by Timothy Hurt, who's a bass baritone. Right Up in the Chariot, the Betty Jackson King version, sung by Felipe Alonso Thomas. And I don't know if Kyle is in good voice to sing today, but Go Down Moses was the one that he had planned to sing by H.T. Burley. So that's what's following this little history talk. I want to remind you that Marian Anderson Guild's scholarship competition will take place on Saturday, April 24th at 9 a.m. And we hope that this information, a little bit of it, has been useful to you. Thank you once again. And here are the sources. I will just quickly run through these so that you can see what they look like, and then you can access them at the end of this PowerPoint. Thanks so much. Next, singing workshop. All right, so I should get my butt up off the piano bench and look a little active. Okay, my children, welcome to our little session on, I'll cut my head off. Welcome to our little session on African-American spirituals. Now, here are 3 students. Actually, there are 4 students, and one is a little ill, and that's Kyle. Kyle's name is his, we only see Kyle's name, but he's a very handsome young man.
Would you like me to turn my camera on?
Oh, yes, we would love to see you, Kyle, even if you don't sing today. There he is. Okay, he's a little under the weather, but he is alive and kicking. So, and all of these students have been studying spirituals. And so today we're going to have a little spiritual fest, so to speak. We're going to go over spirituals that they're doing and talk a little bit about the style and about the energy that is brought when they're singing these spirituals. And maybe we'll go back and forth over it. And then each one of them will get a chance to sing. So Kyle is under the weather, so he will not be singing today, but he will be there cheering them on in spirit. So let's get in order, fellows. Who would like to go first, second, and third? Okay, I see Michael is first, Timothy is second, and Felipe is third. Okay, bravo. So I would like you to make your announcement, and would you sing all the way through it? And then I'll go back and work on some aspect of it. Of course, let's see. Michael, what will you begin with?
I will sing Sometimes I Feel Like a Motherless Child by Moses Hogan.
Thank you.
Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. A long ways from home. A long ways from home. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone. A long ways. Long ways from home.
Okay, there is more to that, a piano accompaniment. Da dee dum ba dee da da dee da ba 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 1
Yeah,
10
my
2
version doesn't have
and
that for some reason.
I'm not exactly sure why. Who cut that off? There's a whole little bit that
know.
follows that. Okay, Michael, very lovely spiritual and lovely in your voice, I think. I've always talked about this minor third when you're going a long ways or a long ways, that you could use a portamento in one of those places to make the word in terms of word painting, to paint that word like it's a very long ways away, that it's far away. And I like the way you grab onto the word. Sometimes I feel, say that at the beginning of that. Sometimes. Yes, really kind of get, it has a rhythm at the beginning. Sometimes I feel, sometimes I feel. If you were going to use a tiny bit of portamento, you could use it there as well. Sing that opening without the accompaniment, just for a second.
Sometimes I feel like a motherless child.
I like that. So you're building up to mother, okay? Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Start that again.
Sometimes I feel like a motherless child.
Good. And the next one?
Sometimes I feel like a motherless child.
And the third one?
Sometimes I feel like a motherless child.
Now see if you can make this sound like it's a very long distance. Put a tiny port in this if you can.
A long ways from
How about this? A long ways. A tiny one. Try it.
A long way
from home. Again, go on.
A long ways from home.
I like that little port. If you could keep that in there, I would like it. Just a tiny one, Michael. A long way. Sing that.
Way.
All right. When you go back and do the second verse, I would see if you can put that in there. Now, when you're in the second verse, that's where the music actually becomes much more lively. The dynamics changes, and you're approaching the climax, the high point in this beautiful spiritual by Moses Hogan. So I want you to build up each time you sing it. I want you to sing just a tiny bit with more intensity with each verse, if you can. So let's go to the second half, if you can find your accompaniment, and let's see if you can build it up to the high note, which is a long.
I just found a better one that has the full ending.
Okay, good. Okay, hopefully it's a good tempo. Maybe the little, yes.
Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone.
A little stronger here.
Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone.
And the strongest here.
Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone. A long ways. A long ways.
Round note.
From home.
And you stay in character, hopeful. Okay, Michael, that's coming along very nicely. If you could give me even just the slightest bit of jazz when you give me, sometimes I feel like I'm almost, that bending note right there. Don't go to the accompaniment, just sing that a cappella. And let me hear that bend.
Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone.
That's right. I want you to lean on that note for all of it, for all that it is worth. Michael, in the title, it is Sometimes I Feel Like a Motherless Child, but when you sing it, it is a child. That's right. When you actually sing the text, there's no D on it. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Child. That's it. Okay, thank you. You can clap for Michael. And let me give Michael a little reaction here. Yummy, yummy. There's a thumbs up, and there's that, and a celebration. Okay, so next, thank you, Michael. And Michael will sit and pay attention while we go on to number 2. Oh, those are nice hands. I like that. Timothy. Timothy, would you make your announcement? Of course, the title is first, and you're going to speak with distinction, not too fast, and then you give the composer's name, whoever arranged it.
Hello, my name is Timothy Hertz, and I will sing Were You There by Moses Hogan.
Sometimes it causes me to tremble. Are you there when they crucified my
Yes. Oh, thank you very much, Timothy. These two students sounding so beautiful today. There are many great things in this in the spirituals that we're hearing today. They offer us real challenges for diction, for example. And the words are "Were you there?" But of course, the R was a problem letter for the Africans that came here, they could not pronounce that R, that American R. And so when Timothy says, "were you, were," that is really, that throws us almost, that connects directly to the speech patterns that they brought to these shores. So yes, so were you there? Were you there? And that R in the word there was also problematic for them. But Timothy, I think you have the right color on it. Say that for us. Were you there?
Were you there?
Yeah, and I always joke about we need to draw on your South Carolinian roots. My family comes from Georgia, so I try to draw on those old roots from Georgia to bring that diction there. And when you go to oh, you put a nice long aperture, a long phase on that oh, almost singing that ooh through it, that oh through an ooh opening. And that's what we want there. Would you sing that first? No, sing the second verse. Were you there when? And also at that ending, you do a nice portamento at the end of your passaggio, and that's so delicious. Yum, yum, yum. I want to eat it for dinner. Let's do the second verse. Okay, were you there when they laid him in the tomb? Is that what it is?
Yeah,
Yes.
a cappella or with the?
I want you to just, we want to hear the language, so sing it a cappella first, and then we'll put it with the recording.
Were you there when they
Oh, one, let me start you again. So that, there you are. Here we go. That's it. Okay, again.
Were you there when they laid him in the tomb?
That's right. Lips far forward for that. And then the next phrase, may I hear this? And this is a little stronger, right? In the second phrase, in the second part of the first verse, the second verse, go.
Were you there when they laid him in the tomb?
Yes, and you put, and like Michael, you put just a tiny bit of juice on that. They laid him. I do like that. I would permit that. Yes, absolutely. And now this oh, so you start on an oh, and this is very long lips for this. Okay, starting there. Go. And I love that. Yes, that's the right color. Sometimes it causes me. I love this old language coming through in this spiritual. Okay, let's do the entire second verse, Timothy, with starting there. There's a little interlude, and then were you there? Go all the way to the end. Make sure you shape that vowel and shape those vowels for that oo and put it all in its color. Again.
All right.
And ask the question. Good, and a little juice here. And joyful.
Sometimes it causes me to tremble.
A little more.
Tremble.
Long aperture.
Were you there when they crucified my Lord?
Yes, hold on. Don't blink. And even if your eyes start to tear, I don't want you blinking at the end of this piece. So you ask them the essential question, the existential question. Were you there when they crucified my Lord? And then you're waiting for an answer. Okay, you're waiting. And even if your eye starts to irritate you a little bit, okay, let it will have to just irritate, but I don't want you blinking there. Okay, bravo. That's very nice. Okay, very nice. And let's go to Felipe. Okay, Felipe, would you make your announcement and let us know what you're singing?
Hello, my name is Felipe Alonso Thomas, and I will sing Ride Up in the Chariot by Betty Jackson King. Gonna ride up in the chariot sooner in the morning. Ride up in the chariot sooner in the morning. Ride up in the chariot sooner in the morning. And I hope I'll join the band. Oh Lord, have mercy on me. Oh Lord, have mercy on me. Oh Lord, have mercy on me. And I hope I'll join the band. Gonna walk and talk with Jesus sooner in the morning. Walk and talk with Jesus sooner in the morning. Walk and talk with Jesus sooner in the morning. And I hope I'll join the band. Oh Lord, have mercy on me. Oh Lord, have mercy on me. Oh Lord, have mercy on me. And I hope I'll join the band. Gonna chatter with the angels sooner in the morning. Chatter with the angels sooner in the morning. Chatter with the angels sooner in the morning. And I hope I'll join the band. Oh Lord, have mercy on me. Oh Lord, have mercy on me. Oh Lord, have mercy on me. And I hope I'll join the band. Oh, have mercy. Oh, have mercy. Oh, have mercy. And I hope I'll join the band. Right in the morning. Oh, my Lord.
Yes, and then you break at the end. Oh, many nice things there. That's such a great Jubilee piece. One of those spirituals that is all about the good news. This, you can almost hear how gospel music leads right into this Jubilee. Many of the spirituals were sorrow songs. Sometimes they were work for God type songs, but this kind of Jubilee, hoping and wanting to be in heaven, Lord, have mercy on me. We can see where that leads right to the gospel. Once the freed slaves left the plantations and moved to the cities, then they needed new music. And this is the style that the new music that they needed. It has all of that joy and energy in it. And I do like your body on that. I love the vowel. Oh, Lord, have mercy. Oh, Lord. Say, oh, Lord.
Oh Lord.
Yes, so when not just oh Lord have, but oh Lord have mercy on me. There's a little bit of energy between the way you sing that. Start right there. Oh, a cappella.
Oh, have mercy.
In the first verse. So right in the first verse, where are you going? Oh Lord, have mercy on me. Oh Lord.
Oh Lord, have mercy on me.
Yes, that's what I want to work on. So the way you sing, oh Lord, oh Lord, the way you get to the Lord, I want that to come out just a tiny bit if you can. Can you do that?
Oh Lord, have mercy on me. Oh Lord, have mercy on me.
Oh,
Oh Lord, have mercy on me.
that's right. That's almost like a shout, almost like somebody just grabbed you and said, oh Lord, have mercy on me. And I hope I'll join the band. So the energy that comes out of that refrain, and this is so typical of those refrains, 3 times repeated, oh Lord, have mercy on me. Oh Lord, have mercy on me. Oh Lord, have mercy on me. And then they complete the idea, and I hope I'll join the band. So I want you to do that again, and I want you to put a little spin on each one of those oh Lords a little differently, if you can, okay? Felipe, just the refrain.
Oh Lord, have mercy on me. Oh Lord, have mercy on me. Oh Lord, have mercy on me. And I hope I'll join the band.
And don't forget that at your final hope, and I hope I'll join the band. That is the Jubilee. That's the good news. And I hope I'll join, the band. That's definitely on that. Now, yes, I know you want to get to this last part. And somehow there's like almost a shimmy that's in this part. Oh, have mercy. And the piano kind of walks. Oh, have mercy. Oh, have mercy. There's almost like a gospel-y quality to it. There's almost a shimmy to it. Can you give me a little bit of body energy? Oh, I don't think I've ever seen that from you. Okay, good. That's what I want. Okay. Can we do the third verse? Let's start with. So before you get to that, oh, have mercy. How about if going to chat with the angels? That's dynamically pretty soft. So you want your when you say the word chatter with the angels, we want that to have a little bit of snap to it. Okay, can you start your accompaniment there? Maybe the interlude that leads into the third verse. Energy and piano.
Gonna chatter with the angels sooner in the morning. Chatter with the angels sooner in the morning. Chatter with the angels sooner in the morning. And I hope I'll join the band. Oh Lord, have mercy on me. Oh Lord, have mercy on me.
And the third time.
Oh Lord, have mercy on me. And I hope I'll join the band.
Now energy.
Oh, have mercy. Oh, have mercy. Oh, have mercy. And I hope I'll join the band. Right in the morning, oh my Lord.
And what does all of this shaking of my hand indicate? What does that mean? We definitely want a vibrato on that last Lord. We want it to be vibrant and alive all the way to the release. And then of course, out of that comes a great bow. Now, could I get all of my students to make a nice bow all together, including our sick one, Kyle? Would you show me a nice bow so that we can all bow together? Okay, let's see if we can get it coordinated. And hands by your side, then your feet together and bow. Looking at your shoes down there, 1, 2, 3, and then back up. And then your right hand for your accompanist. Let's see your accompanist right hand. Yes, a little higher, Timothy. Yes. Okay, so we can see that. Yes, thank you. And then if they are still clapping, you could bow again. All right, let me have a conversation with Kyle. Okay, thank you, Felipe. Lovely done, lovely done. Now let's see, Kyle, let's just talk about the spirituals you're singing. So what are you singing this semester? Are you singing a spiritual this semester?
I should be.
Okay, tell me about the last spiritual that I taught you. Let's see, you actually did two of them. You did two Burley spirituals. You did Go Down Moses, right?
Right.
And which is in that style. Go down Moses, way down in Egypt. Oh, that's in G minor, right? Go down Moses, way down in Egypt's land. Tell old Pharaoh to let my people go. Yeah, there's a lot of energy in there. And that piano part, it's got that rolling kind of, swirling energy that comes out of that spiritual. But is that your favorite one? Is that the one that you like the most? What's the other one that you did?
The other Burley piece I did was My Lord, What a Morning. That's the first one you ever taught me.
Oh, that's now I'm wondering if you did that in D flat.
That gorgeous key.
Yes, that's My Lord, what a morning. And then my Lord, what a morning. Oh, and then a blues note. My Lord, what
a morning when the stars begin to fall.
Yeah, when the stars. It's actually they talk about, this is a spiritual that could be about revelations, about the stars falling and the heaven and earth is transfigured. It's changed for when the Lord comes. So the worlds are destroyed, and you say, oh my goodness, what a morning. And you're going to quit your earthly ways so that you can join the what? You can join that. What's those words? Join that what?
The heavens.
The heavenly band. I was just thinking about Felipe saying, and I hope I'll join the band and hear Don quit all my worldly ways. That join that heavenly band. Oh, and then you get back into it. Like Felipe's spiritual, this one has that structure, that form, the repetition 3 times in the refrain. My Lord, what a morning. My Lord, what a morning. Oh, my Lord, what a morning. And there's a great Burley chord there on the last one. And then you have that wonderful, when the stars begin to fall. When the stars begin. And that's a long postlude after that. Burley saved some of the best music for himself right at the end.
Yeah.
Oh, so those are great pieces. Those are all wonderful spirituals. And I'm so proud that you're all learning this great repertoire. And hopefully in the spring, you will have a group of spirituals and art songs and maybe some musical theater to sing for the scholarship competition that'll take place at the end of April. Okay, so I'm going to say thank you all for this opportunity to work with you, and we will see you in April. Just one moment, let me. This is Every Time I Feel the Spirit, arranged by Hall Johnson. Every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. Every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. Every time I feel the Spirit
moving in my heart, I will pray. Every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. On the mountain, my Lord spoke, out of his mouth came fire and smoke. In the valley, on my knees, ask my Lord, have mercy, please. Every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. Yes, every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. Jordan River, chilly and cold, chills the body, but not the soul. All around me looks so shine, as my Lord, if all was mine. Every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. Yes, every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. Ain't but one train on this track, runs to heaven and runs right back. St. Peter waiting at the gate says, come on, sinner, don't be late. Oh, every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. Every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. Yes, every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. Every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, I will pray.